I'm a 29-year-old guy living in a mid-sized city in the US. I work a steady job in IT, have a small circle of close friends, and until recently, thought I had a solid relationship with my girlfriend of 2 years. Let's call her G. She's 28, bubbly, smart, and social. Basically the complete opposite of me. I've always been more reserved, the kind of guy who prefers a quiet night with a movie over a party. But I figured opposites attract, and G seemed to complement my personality perfectly. At least, that's what I thought. It all started a few weeks ago when a friend of mine sent me a screenshot. It was from a dating app. At first, I thought it was some kind of joke. There she was, G, smiling in a photo I'd taken on our trip to the mountains. Her profile said she was single, looking for something casual, and conveniently left out the fact that she had a boyfriend. I stared at the screen, my heart pounding in my chest. Was this real? Maybe it was old. Maybe someone was using her photos. A dozen excuses ran through my mind, each one trying to convince me it wasn't what it looked like. But my gut told me otherwise. I didn't confront her right away. Instead, I started paying closer attention to her behavior. And sure enough, things didn't add up. She was suddenly busy more often, always had her phone glued to her hand, and acted cagey whenever I asked what she was up to. It felt like a punch to the gut, but I needed more proof before I did anything. So, I did what any tech-savvy guy in my position would do. I dug deeper. One evening, when she left her phone unattended to take a shower, I took a deep breath and unlocked it. I know, invading someone's privacy is wrong, but at that moment I didn't care. My instincts were screaming at me to find the truth. And boy, did I find it. There were messages between her and several guys. Flirty, suggestive, even explicit at times. But one thread stood out. It was with her ex-boyfriend. Let's call him Jay. From the looks of it, they'd been talking for months. The messages weren't just flirty. They were emotional, intimate, and full of reminiscing about their good old days. But here's the kicker. Jay thought she was single. The messages made it clear that G had painted me as some clingy ex who wouldn't leave her alone. She even told him I was harassing her, which explained why Jay had sent a few hostile messages to my social media accounts a while back. I hadn't responded to them at the time, thinking it was some kind of misunderstanding. Now it all made sense. I felt a mix of anger, betrayal, and humiliation. But most of all, I felt determined. G wanted to play games? Fine. Two could play at that. The first thing I did was screenshot everything. Her profile on the dating app, the messages with Jay, and every incriminating conversation I could find. I transferred the screenshots to my email and saved them in multiple places. I wasn't going to leave any room for her to gaslight me later. Next, I reached out to Jay. It wasn't an easy conversation to start, considering he thought I was some psycho ex, but I kept it civil. I sent him the screenshots and told him the truth. G and I had been dating for 2 years, and she'd been lying to both of us. At first, he didn't believe me. He accused me of trying to sabotage their relationship. But after a few days of silence, he messaged back. I'm sorry. You were right. She lied to me too. Apparently, Jay confronted her, and G tried to spin some wild story about how I was obsessed with her and fabricating everything. But Jay wasn't buying it anymore. He broke things off with her immediately. You'd think that would be the end of it, but G wasn't going down without a fight. When I confronted her, she played the victim card. She cried, accused me of invading her privacy, and even tried to twist the situation to make it seem like I was the one in the wrong. If you loved me, you wouldn't have snooped through my phone, she shouted. Loved you? I shot back. You've been lying to me for months. How could you do this? Her excuses were endless. I was confused. It didn't mean anything. I was going to end it with him anyway. None of it mattered to me. The trust was gone, and there was no coming back from this. But the real drama started when she found out I'd told Jay everything. You had no right to involve him, she screamed. You've ruined my life. She tried every dirty trick in the book to control the situation. She called my friends and family, painting herself as the victim of my vindictive actions. She even threatened to go to my boss and make false accusations if I didn't stay quiet. Big mistake. I wasn't going to let her manipulate me anymore. I took the evidence I'd gathered, the screenshots, the messages, everything, and contacted a lawyer. I wanted to make sure she couldn't follow through on her threats. My lawyer advised me to file a police report just to have an official record in case things escalated. And escalate they did. She started showing up at my apartment unannounced, begging for forgiveness one day and screaming obscenities the next. I ended up getting a restraining order against her, which only made her angrier. She retaliated by spreading lies about me on social media, but the screenshots I posted in response shut that down pretty quickly. Still, I wasn't satisfied. G had spent months deceiving me, gaslighting me, and trying to ruin my reputation when her lies came to light. I wanted her to face real consequences, so I took it a step further. One of the guys she'd been messaging on the dating app, he turned out to be married. I found his wife on Facebook and sent her the screenshots of their conversations. She was devastated but grateful for the truth. From what I heard, she kicked him out and filed for divorce. As for Jay, he and I actually ended up meeting for a drink. It was awkward at first, but we bonded over our shared experience of being duped by G. He told me he'd blocked her on everything and was moving on with his life. In the end, G lost everything: her boyfriend, her ex, her reputation, and the trust of the people around her. And me? I'm doing better than ever. Cutting her out of my life was the best decision I've ever made. If there's one thing I've learned from this mess, it's that trust is everything. Once it's gone, there's no getting it back. After cutting G out of my life, things started to settle down, but not without a few more ripples. Her attempts to smear my name on social media didn't go unnoticed by mutual acquaintances. Some people initially bought into her victim act, but once I shared the screenshots and the full story with those who mattered, the tide turned against her. The fallout from her lies was far-reaching. I later learned through a mutual friend that G had been fired from her job. Apparently, she'd been using company time and resources to maintain her double life, and when her bosses got wind of the drama and the restraining order, they decided it wasn't worth keeping her on. She'd burned bridges in her professional life just as thoroughly as she had in her personal one. But the most satisfying part of all this? Watching her entitlement and manipulative tactics blow up in her face. For example, she tried reaching out to some of her old flames, guys she'd breadcrumbed or strung along in the past. A couple of them even reached out to me after hearing what had happened, sharing their own stories of how she played them. Turns out, G had a pattern of juggling relationships and using people for attention. It was almost like a game to her, seeing how far she could push before someone caught on. Despite all this chaos, there was one moment of closure that stuck with me. A few weeks after everything went down, G sent me one final message. She begged me to meet her just to talk. Against my better judgment, I agreed, but only in a public place where I felt safe. When I arrived, she was already waiting at the table, looking disheveled and nervous. I sat down and braced myself for whatever manipulation she had planned. I just wanted to say I'm sorry, she began, her voice trembling. I stayed silent, letting her talk. I don't know why I did what I did, she continued. I guess I just didn't want to lose anyone. I was scared of being alone. For a brief moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. But then she slipped back into her old habits. I know I messed up, she said, leaning forward with wide, pleading eyes. But I think we can fix this. We were good together, weren't we? I couldn't help but laugh. Not out of humor, but disbelief. Fix this? I repeated. After everything you've done? Her expression shifted from remorse to desperation. I'll make it up to you. I'll do whatever it takes. Just give me another chance. That was the moment I realized she wasn't sorry for what she'd done. She was sorry for the consequences. I think we're done here, I said, standing up. Her eyes filled with tears, but I didn't stay to watch. I walked out of the cafe, feeling lighter than I had in months. That was the last time I saw her. Since then, life has been refreshingly drama-free. I've reconnected with friends I hadn't seen much during my relationship with G, started focusing on my hobbies again, and even adopted a dog, a goofy Labrador mix who's brought nothing but joy into my life. Every now and then, I'll get a message from someone who knew G, asking if the rumors about what happened are true. I just tell them the truth and let them draw their own conclusions. Looking back, I'm grateful for the whole ordeal. Not for the pain or betrayal, but for the lessons it taught me. Trust is earned, not given freely. And sometimes, Letting go of someone toxic is the best thing you can do for yourself. If you made it this far, you're officially part of my drama support group. Hit subscribe, and let's hope my next story is less complicated, or at least has fewer dating apps involved.